I'm sure at this point you're aware of the Gregg Wallace Saga. How could you not be? It's been front and centre of every newspaper and every online news website for the past few days. Now, despite the outrage and hysteria from the mainstream media, I can't be the only person that thinks this is all really weird. This seems to me to be something of a non-story, yet it just keeps going and going. From what I understand, Gregg Wallace made some unwanted, crass, sexualized comments in his role as a TV presenter on a cookery show over the years. Now, from what I can tell, he hasn't actually done anything illegal nor abused anybody, so this is all a little bit of a storm in a teacup, it seems. Now, some commenters online have stated that they see this whole thing as the mainstream media feeding the public absolute dross so they ignore real issues that the mainstream don't want them to focus on. Now that's a viable theory, but I think something else might be going on. Normally when a TV presenter gets caught in a BBC/Guardian Easter storm, they'll apologise and say I'm going to do some therapy, maybe do a course on feminism to learn how toxic I am, and in a year or two they might get their job back. But instead of doing a grovelling apology to the baying mob on the one show, Gregg Wallace decided to go all out and called his accusers middle-class women of a certain age. Now, I think it was this comment that took this story into a whole new level. Yes, it's all still meaningless pap, but it shows us something very important about our media ecosystem. The reason the mainstream media is so hysterical about this story is because they feel personally offended. Many people in that mainstream media network are bossy, finger-wagging, Labour-voting, middle-class women of a certain age. But this video isn't about me mounting a defence for Gregg Wallace's original comments. As I say, they do seem a little bit crass, and I'm all for manners. However, I do feel a bit sorry for him, because this story's got completely out of control. But let's be honest, if he made the comments about a different demographic, the BBC and The Guardian would not care about this story. The reason they're pushing it is because they feel it affects them. This is why the mainstream media are getting every single middle-class woman of a certain age they can find to talk about how terrible Gregg Wallace is, how offended they are from about 100 different angles. Kay Burley even brought on Stephen Fry to get his opinions about Wallace's comments. Who cares what Stephen Fry thinks about this? And it's a bit of a shame because there is a legitimate point in there somewhere about manners and not making sexualized comments to people whose sense of humour you don't really understand yet. But they've overplayed their hand so much, it just makes them look like they view themselves as victims. It's probably why they like comedy like this on the BBC.
Women have told everyone to just off. Tired of being judged for choosing to have children or not have children, to have children and go back to work, to have children and not go back to work, for being too thin, too fat, too pushy, too unambitious, too hot, not hot enough, or even for just daring to be alive. Women have stressed that everyone can go themselves.
How edgy and original. But the point I'm trying to make in this video is our mainstream media does have a hysterical female quality to it. They tend to engage in a lot of character assassination. That's what Gregg Wallace is going through at the moment. I don't know if he's a good person or a bad person. He's made some crass comments I disagree with, well, they're for conservative Christian reasons, not politically correct ones. But as I say, this tells us a lot about how our mainstream media functions, as well as how they bring a certain toxicity into all of the issues of the day. But there's an irony at play here, as the whole Gregg Wallace saga centres around a man making crass comments and making women feel uncomfortable. But when you look at the response of the mainstream media, you see that they're very toxic and hysterical as well. I think that creates a very unpleasant environment culturally, but I also think it's very unhealthy for men to be involved in that sort of gossipy world. It's no wonder that most men are tuning out of the mainstream media and increasingly going to YouTube. While YouTube does have some stringent regulations of its own, you can at least get independent thought there. It's often made me wonder how long it will be before the finger-wagging, bossy Labour Party type women do draw their gaze to YouTube and try and bring it into line. Have to wait and see, eh? These are just my thoughts. Do let me know what you think down below. Do consider subscribing to the channel if you're new.